I want to welcome every one of you to the Net Retreat 2017. You will make this retreat either alone or with the members of your family. You will make it at your own time. But even as you do so, I would like you to keep in mind that along with you and along with the members of your family, there are hundreds of others from all over the world making this retreat with you. And so I would suggest that you spend a few moments every day bringing all of these hundreds also into your prayer and praying that, like you, they too will make a good retreat. Today is the first day of our retreat. And on this first day, I would like each of us to reflect on ourselves. This retreat will be about you, not about your husband, not about your wife, not about your children, not about your neighbors. It will be about you. And so therefore, the first reflection must be on who I am in this entire universe. In this first meditation, I want to take you back to the fact that we are living in a broken world. A world which is very much in need of healing. And the brokenness is not merely out there. The brokenness is within me. And so I focus on my own brokenness, on my own sin, on my own weakness, on the fact that I have not really been the kind of person that I ought to be. Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 tells us that God has created us, men and women, in God's own image and likeness. And yet, somewhere along the line, we have not lived up to that image. On any given day, a look at the newspapers in most parts of the world will indicate the brokenness of the world. A look at the news on television or on different other media will indicate to us that it is a world in need of healing. And in order to heal that world, I need to begin by healing myself. I want to take you through a meditation suggested by the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verses 1 to 9. I would suggest that you apply your senses to this beautiful miracle. And to apply your senses means that you put yourself into that situation and become one of the characters. The miracle is about the healing of a man who lay by the pool of Bethesda and who was ill for 38 years. You might choose to be one of the disciples of Jesus. You might choose to be one of the bystanders. You might choose to be one of the invalids who lay by that pool. When you put yourself into that position, when you apply your senses to this text, then it becomes real to you and you can draw profit from it. What does this miracle tell us? John begins by telling us in chapter 5 verse 1 that it was a festival of the Jews. And the Gospel of John is a gospel in which festivals are opportunities for a great revelation that Jesus is going to make. During the festival of the booths, Jesus makes the revelation that he is the light of the world. During the festival of the Passover, Jesus makes the revelation that he is the bread of life. So we wonder what kind of a revelation Jesus is going to make now when we read in chapter 5 verse 1 that it was a festival of the Jews. In the Synoptic Gospels, Jesus goes up to Jerusalem just once, and that is to suffer and die. In the Gospel of John, he goes up to Jerusalem on at least 3, if not 4 occasions, and this is one of those occasions when Jesus visits Jerusalem. I would like you to place yourself in Jerusalem at this time, with a number of people milling about during this festival. In every country in the world, we have had opportunities to be present at festivals which take place in our countries, and we know what goes on there. Crowds moving about, some visiting a holy place, some visiting relatives, some going to the fair, which is part of the festival, some just observing what things are going on. And Jesus goes along with the crowd to the festival. What is important to note is this, that John gives a beautiful description of the place which Jesus visits. He calls it the Portico of Solomon, the sheep gate, and it is as if John wants us to picture in our mind, that is how picturesque his description is. So we can picture this place which Jesus visits. Not surprisingly, Jesus doesn't go first to the temple. He goes to that place where people are in need. And even as he stands looking at the pool at Bethsaida, he notices 3 kinds of invalids. And John mentions them as the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. It is likely there could have been also deaf and dumb people. But the possible reason why John doesn't mention these is because of the fact that you cannot really notice with external sight whether a person is deaf and dumb. And I would like us to look at these 3 kinds of invalids, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed, but also to bring in possibly people who were deaf, unable to hear, and dumb, unable to speak. And if you choose to be a bystander, you can stand along with Jesus and look down at the sick, or if you choose to be one of the sick, you can lie there while Jesus looks at you. And of all these numerous people, Jesus chooses one. Why did Jesus choose this man? The text does not tell us. The text only says this: Jesus saw the man and knew he had been lying there a long time. Later on, we are told that his illness was for 38 years. And Jesus picks this man who is paralyzed. But before I can take you through what happens with the man who is paralyzed, I want us to reflect on the other 2 kinds of invalids mentioned by John, and the first of these is the blind. While it is true that most of those there, or all of those there, would have had external blindness, that is, they would be unable to see with the eyes of their heads. I might be able to see with the eyes of my head, but I may not be able to see with the eyes of my heart. Am I blind? to the needs of the members of my family? Am I blind to the needs of my husband, of my wife, of my children, of my parents? Am I blind to the needs of hundreds of those who live around me? Have I closed myself? Have I ensconced myself in my own small personal world that the needs of others mean nothing to me? Am I looking but not seeing? Am I aware of what is happening around me? So blindness is not necessarily external. In the book The Little Prince, there is a dialogue between the fox and the little prince. And in one of the dialogues, the fox says to the little prince, I'm going to tell you a secret. It is a very small secret, and it is this. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. So there is, besides looking with the eyes of the head, a looking with the eyes of my heart. Am I able to know with the eyes of my heart what the needs of the members of my family are, what the needs of those who live around me are? Or are the eyes of my heart closed? With regard to lameness, another term for lameness is lethargy. Another term is laziness. And lethargy and laziness might manifest themselves in what we call procrastination, putting off till tomorrow what I could do now, putting off till later what must be done immediately. Procrastination is the sin of many of us, and the reason is not because we cannot do it, but because we have become lazy. Have I become lethargic in everything that I do? Have I become lazy? Have I become such a person that for me to move into action takes a long time? Am I one of those who speaks and speaks only and does not act? And when I do act, is there a consonance? Is there a harmony? Is there a synchrony between my actions and my words? Lameness is not necessarily the lameness of the limbs, but lameness can also be the lameness of the mind and of the heart. If I am one of those who procrastinates constantly, and because of my procrastination, what I have to do is not done, and others suffer because of it, can I pray that I get rid of my procrastination today? The third kind of invalid of which this person whom Jesus meets is paralysis. The man is paralyzed. And the man is paralyzed and lying on his mat because he's physically paralyzed. I might have the use of all of my limbs. I might be able to walk. I might be able to stand upright. And yet, it is possible that I might be paralyzed with the paralysis of fear. Fear, my brothers and sisters, paralyzes so very many of us. It does not allow us to be free. And the best part is that fear is unreal. Fear is an illusion. Who or what am I afraid about? I'm afraid of a person who I believe can give me or hold back from me something which I think I cannot do without. And honestly, there is nothing that you cannot do without. There is nothing that you need to make you happy. There is nothing that you need to make you free. And the sooner you realize this, the sooner your fear disappears. Darkness is not a positive. It is the absence of light. sickness is not a positive, it is the absence of health. So fear is not a positive, it is the absence of love. In 1 John 4:10 we are told that our love for God is secondary and God's love for us is first. And John goes on to tell us in his first letter, chapter 4, verse 18, that there is no fear in love, because perfect love casts out fear. So the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. You fear when you do not love. You fear when you imagine and think wrongly that someone can give you something to make you happy, that an event must occur for you to be happy, that something must be acquired for you to be happy. And I say, you don't need a person to make you happy. You don't need an event to happen to make you happy. You don't need a thing to be acquired to make you happy. And if you are happy without this person, without the event occurring, and without this acquisition of the thing, then you are truly free and you are not frightened at all. So while paralysis might be external, what is also possible is the paralysis of my own fear, which I know is caused by my mind, which then gets the heart to understand and to feel that fear. Perfect love casts out fear. When there is love, there is no fear, and the only reality, therefore, is love. I want to also take you to the other kind of invalids who may have been there, but whom John has not mentioned in this text, and they are the deaf and the dumb. I ask about my own deafness. Have I closed the ears of my heart to the pleading of the people around me? Have I closed the ears of my heart to the injustice that goes on around me? Have I closed the ears of my heart to hear the cries of those in need simply because I want to shut myself out? I don't want to do anything about it. I don't want to get involved. I want to live in my own small, narrow world. Have the eyes of my heart become deaf? Have I been unable to speak out when there is injustice? Have I been unable to take a stand when someone has been unjustly accused? Or will I remain silent? I better not get into trouble. I better not get into problems. Let them handle their own challenges. Why should I involve myself? This is what most of us say the majority of the times, and that is why people get away with murder. And that is why, because I refuse to speak, because I choose to be dumb, others can do what they want, others can have as much injustice as they want, and everything seems okay to me because it has not happened to me. And tomorrow, you may want someone to speak on your behalf, and they will remain dumb. What happens then? So there is my own blindness, my lameness, my paralysis, my dumbness, and my deafness. And of these, the Lord chooses one in this particular text. And he approaches the man. And if you are one of those who is paralyzed, put yourself in the position of this man as the Lord comes to you. And the Lord approaches you as a friend. I said at the beginning that festivals are times of revelation of Jesus, an aspect of his personality. In this particular case, Jesus reveals himself both as a friend and as a friend who is able to heal, as a friend who is able to make whole. So imagine the Lord coming to you and asking you this question. And in Greek, this is the question, hugis genestai, which translated into English means, do you want to be healed, or do you want to be made well? John uses this phrase 3 times in the whole incident. Hugis genestai, do you want to be made well? And some of us who might say, but can't Jesus see that the man is paralyzed? Can't Jesus see that the man is near the brink of salvation? Can't Jesus see that the man is trying to get him? And the answer is no. No, because Jesus will not assume. When you assume, you usually make an ass of you and me. That is how assume is spelled. A-S-S-U, me. So Jesus will not assume. And often in the Gospels, when a person comes to him for healing, Jesus asks, what do you want me to do for you? So in this case, he will not assume that the man is in need of healing. He will not take for granted that the man wants to be made well. Because the man is lying near the pool does not necessarily mean that he might want to be made well. It is likely that he is comfortable with his paralysis. It is likely that he is comfortable with his illness, because then people pity him, because people give him an alms. He does not have to work to earn his living. He gets what he wants because of his illness. Are you like the paralytic, possibly, who prefer to stay paralyzed, who prefer to stay blind, who prefer to stay lame, who prefer to stay deaf and dumb, because that is comfortable for you? If you get well, if you have to get out of your lethargy, if you must stop your procrastination, if you must look with the eyes of the heart, if you must speak out when injustice occurs, if you must hear the cries of the poor, then it's challenging. So you would rather be blind, you would rather be lame, you would rather be paralyzed, you would rather be dumb and deaf and be comfortable with all of these ailments. So it is likely that this man lying at the pool of Bethesda might be in the same position, and that is why the Lord has to ask him, Hugis genestai, do you want to be healed? Do you want to be made well? And like the larger majority of us, the man is a chronic complainer. Oh Lord, look at me. Nobody loves me. I'm alone in the world. My husband doesn't care for me. My wife ignores me. My children have all gone astray. The man at the pool uses similar terms. I've got no one to help me. I need to go into the pool. Before I go, someone else steps in and that person is healed. How long am I going to lie here? He doesn't really answer the question of Jesus, do you want to be made well? He would rather complain. It is true that he has been ill for 38 years and possibly lost hope, and possibly given into despair, and possibly discouraged. And this could happen to each one of you, because you were possibly saying to yourself, but how much am I going to try? How much am I going to do? How much must I convert myself? And the Lord is approaching you like he approached this man and asking you, Hugis genestai, do you want to be made well? And even this complaint of the man, namely that he has no one to help him, is enough for the Lord to recognize it as a cry for help, as a cry for healing, as a cry that the Lord will come to his assistance. And in royal style, the Lord gives him 3 commands. Rise, take up your mat, and walk. And we know that the man wanted to be healed because he did indeed rise. The text says he took up his mat and he walked. A man who had been ill for 38 years is a man who is healed instantly. A man who is healed on the turn of the moment. A man who is healed immediately. And I believe that the same can happen to you. Listen to the Lord ask you this question. Hugies genestai, do you want to be made well? It is likely that you might want to complain like the man, that you've been trying to get rid of this habit, you've been trying to get rid of your procrastination, you've been trying to get rid of your lethargy, and you're not successful. Do not worry, because the Lord is saying to you, like he said to the paralytic, rise, take up your mat and walk. So whether if you are one of those who is blind, whether you are one of those who is lame, whether you are paralyzed, whether you are deaf, and whether you are dumb, there is hope. Because the Lord comes to the aid of the hopeless. The Lord comes to the aid of the sick. Very clearly in all the Gospels, the one priority of the Lord is sinners. And while I said at the beginning, the retreat is about you, I would like you to focus on yourself when I speak about sin. Not on your wife's sin, not on your husband's sin, not on the sin of your neighbors or your children or your parents, but on your own sin. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, in his book, The Gulag Archipelago, says so beautifully, if only it were all so simple, if only there were evil people everywhere, insidiously committing acts of evil, and it were necessary to take those people, lock them in a cage, and bolt the door. But he goes on to say, the line dividing good and evil cuts through every human heart. And which of us is willing to take out a part of our hearts and put it in that cage? In other words, if you had to put evil in a cage, you would have to take out a part of your heart, because evil resides in every single human heart. In Sunday school, a boy was asked by his teacher, Johnny, the teacher said, if all the good people in the world were black and all the bad people in the world were white, what color would you be? And Johnny said, I would be gray. Neither white nor black, I would be gray, because within me there is good, but within me there is evil, and I would say every single one of us in this world would be gray. So all of us are in need of healing, and yet I am first in need of healing. And so I suggest once again that you hear the Lord ask you this question. Hugies genestai. Do you want to be made well? When you look at the word sin as it is written in the English language, you will find it is made up of 3 alphabets. On the one extreme, you might say, is the alphabet S. On the other extreme is the alphabet N, and the I is in the middle. So any reflection on sin has to begin with the I in the middle. I in the middle of sin. This simple, not simplistic explanation can explain both my individual sin and societal sin. When the I is in the center, whether with an individual, whether with a community, whether with a nation, whether with any group, then there is sin. So in my reflection, I ask myself, how often have I put the I in the middle? How often in a day do I put the I in the center? And for this, I am going to suggest to you what is termed as the examination of consciousness. I suggest 2 kinds of examinations. One is what I term as the general examination of consciousness, in which I go through my day asking where I have fallen short. I can take those areas of my life to which I am prone to give in. It could be blindness, it could be lameness, it could be paralysis, it could be deafness, it could be dumbness, or it could be another which I may not have mentioned. And I plot myself on a scale of 1 to 10. Where am I with regard to this aspect on a scale of 1 to 10 today? As I go through my day, if I do this examination twice a day, once in the afternoon and once before going to bed at night, then I can say to myself, yes, up till this afternoon, I was 4 on the scale of anger. I want to lessen it down. I want to come to 3. I want to come to 2. I want to finally give up simply getting angry for no rhyme or reason. So I go through this examination with prayer. I reflect on these areas of my life, whatever they might be. And then I ask myself, where do I stand on a scale of 1 to 10? Once I plotted where I am, I make a resolution with the grace of God to move down that scale to lessen that particular aspect in my life. The second kind of examination is what I call the particular examination of consciousness, and it is this. I take a simple area in my life and a single area. So it could be my anger. It could be my jealousy. It could be my constant comparing with others. It could be my laziness. It could be my lethargy. It could be anything which I think is holding me back, not allowing me to be the kind of person that I am. So let us assume that I take my anger. I'm one of those who gets angry very quickly. I'm one of those who bursts out in anger and later on I regret that I got angry. How do I do this particular examine? I stop myself in the afternoon, and it will not take you more than 5 minutes to do this. So you don't need a great length of time. Take you 5 minutes to do this particular examination. I begin with a prayer of gratitude to God for having sustained me till this moment. After my prayer of gratitude to God, I simply go through those moments in my life from morning till this moment where I got angry. I begin to ask myself, why did I get angry all those times? What was the result of my anger? How did I react to the situation? What is going to be the consequence of my reactions? And because I can do nothing about what has happened, I make a resolution that if I got angry 5 times from the morning till lunchtime, I'm surely going to make it at least 1, if not 2, less times from the afternoon till I go to bed at night. So I take a particular aspect of my life and I ask for God's grace in order to fulfill this resolution that I made. Before I can go to bed at night, I go through my day from the time I made the last particular examine till the time I'm making this examine now. And I say to myself, yes, I did get angry 5 times. I made a resolution to get angry at least once, if not 2 times from afternoon till I go to bed. Did I accomplish this? Even if you never accomplish it, maybe you got angry 6 times. Maybe you got angry 7 times. Maybe you are able to accomplish no matter what. Don't give up, because the Lord does not give up on you. Do it the next day and the next day and the next day, and you will see that in doing so, you are answering the Lord when He asks you, Hugiis genestai, do you want to be made well? And you are saying to the Lord, I want to be made well. I wish each one of you a very blessed retreat. And while I keep you in my very special prayers during these days, I ask for your prayers for me also. We're all making this retreat as individuals, and the retreat is about me, the retreat is about you, but along with you and me, the hundreds of others who are making this retreat will also be brought into our prayer. Thank you. If it is morning when you're doing this, a very good morning to you. If it is afternoon, a very good afternoon. If it is evening, a very good evening. And if you're going to bed after this reflection, Good night. God bless you.